why the moon hoax would have been impossible. Take one. Did people go to the moon in 1969? I'm not totally sure. I wasn't on the moon then. Did they fake going to the moon? No, I'm pretty sure they didn't, because they couldn't. Some people say that in 1969 people were incapable of sending a man to the moon, but that they were capable of staging the whole thing in a TV studio. In fact, the opposite is true. By the late 1960s, they did have the technical ability, not to mention the requisite madness, to send 3 guys to the moon and back. They did not have the technology to fake it on video. Now, please understand, I'm not saying this to defend the honor of the United States. The U.S. government lies all the time about all kinds of things, and if they haven't lied to you today, maybe they haven't had coffee yet. So it's easy to believe the Apollo program was a lie too, especially if you weren't alive then, and if you don't know much about the technology profiles of the day. You see, the later you were born, the more all-powerful movie magic seems. Nowadays, it would be very easy to fake a moon landing, and we seem to have forgotten how to do it for real. Back then, it was the other way around, really. Ever since the 1920s, engineers were trying to improve liquid-fueled rockets and their guidance systems. They wanted to go to outer space. The people who were paying for it wanted better bombs. By 1943, Wernher von Braun's people already had a fully functional suborbital rocket called the Aggregate Fear, later known as the V2. After the war, the German rocket scientists went to work for 2 rival superpowers who then went to insane lengths to outdo each other on the world stage. It was a global dick-wagging contest on a scale never before seen in human history. It's fair to say that technology growth in the Cold War was mostly a competition in aerospace, rocketry, and weapons science. That was the kind of engineering people strove to excel in. And by the mid-60s, limited space travel was a possibility, I think. Meanwhile, film technology had gotten wider, and television was still busy trying to be in color. Now, here's where the stories diverge. In one version, the Americans waste $20 billion to send 3 guys to the moon, plant a plaque that says we came in peace for all mankind, and then go home to bomb Cambodia. In the more tantalizing version, NASA at some point realizes they just can't. So to avoid humiliation, they hire Stanley Kubrick to produce and direct the moon landing telecasts. You know, he did such a great job with 2001. Years later, once the Apollo astronauts are starting to collect Medicare, some people get a lot of attention by pointing out flaws in the photographic evidence from Apollo. When you listen to them, they seem not to know very much about photography or video or lighting or even perspective, and I think they're hoping you don't either. So we should have seen stars in the sky? No, we shouldn't. The camera was set to expose for broad daylight. If they were exposing for stars, then this picture would have looked more like this. Flag's waving in the breeze? No, it isn't. It's wiggling in the vacuum after they let it go. The shadows diverge unrealistically across the landscape? No, they don't. Go outside sometime and see how shadows work. They obviously used multiple light sources in this picture, right? No, they obviously didn't. I've been shooting in the studio for about 30 years now. I know what to look for. When you shine 2 lights at something, you get 2 shadows. So this would have looked more like this. But it doesn't, because this stuff was shot with a single light source. And if that light was anywhere near the action, you would have seen a fall-off in brightness across the terrain. You don't, because the light source was 150 million kilometers away, too far away for the inverse square law to make a difference. Get it? Etc., blah, blah, blah. The thing is, all these discussions are ignoring one simple point. In 1969, it was not yet possible, technically, to fake what we saw on TV. Why are people missing this? I think maybe they forget how primitive video was in 1969. I mean, it was an amazing achievement in electronics, but there was a lot they couldn't do. Let me try to explain that.